Hello, everyone. Today we're diving into a mysterious murder case that took place 43 years ago on the night before Easter Sunday. It happened in a small room within a church where the body of a nun was discovered. After an intense investigation, the prime suspect turned out to be someone no one would have ever expected. However, under the influence of the church, the suspect walked free and the investigation hit a dead end. It wasn't until 23 years later that a breakthrough finally emerged. Surprisingly, Dr. Layton Nark, a forensic evidence expert, was also involved in this investigation. So, what exactly happened back then? Let's rewind time to 1980 and revisit the entire crime scene. The city of Toledo, nestled on the shores of Lake Erie in northern Ohio, USA, became a bustling hub thanks to its prime location along the waterways. Known as a prominent city in the Great Lakes region, Toledo earned the nickname Glass City due to its thriving glass industry. Our story unfolds right here on April 5, 1980, the day before Easter. Inside the small church attached to Mercy Hospital in downtown Toledo, the nuns were busy preparing for the evening service and the Easter celebration the following day. At 8:20 a.m., Sister Mary, who was in charge of the liturgical preparations, headed to the sacristy to call Father Gerald Robinson and discuss the hymns for the evening service. The sacristy, a modest room about 20 square meters, was located right next to the church. When she arrived, Sister Mary noticed that both doors to the room were locked, which struck her as odd since they had been opened just moments before when she left. Shrugging it off, she pulled out her keys and unlocked the door. As she stepped inside, she saw a figure lying on the floor. Instinctively, she turned to fetch water, but then hesitated. In such a sacred place, she thought, surely no one would dare stage a cruel prank. Plus, the curtains were still drawn, limiting visibility in the dim light. At first, she assumed it might be a medical mannequin from the hospital, but as she approached, the sight before her made her scream in horror. Sprawled on the floor, surrounded by blood, was Sister Margaret Pahl, the nun responsible for managing the sacristy. Her body lay in an unnatural position, clothing disheveled, pants pulled down to her ankles. The gruesome, blood-soaked scene sent Sister Mary into a panic. She bolted from the room, shouting for help. The police arrived quickly, sealing off the area and launching an investigation. The victim, Sister Margaret Pahl, was 71 years old, originally from Sylvan, Ohio. She came from a family of 8 siblings. Though her upbringing wasn't affluent, her family was close-knit and happy. From a young age, Margaret was bright, eager to learn, and determined to join the Sisters of Mercy, a Roman Catholic religious order founded in 1831 by Catherine Macaulay. The order's mission was to serve the poor, sick, and uneducated, with a special focus on women and children. Many of its nuns worked in education, healthcare, and community projects, making it a well-known organization at the time. Margaret's family were devout Catholics. 2 of her cousins had also joined the Sisters of Mercy, so her decision to enter the order was wholeheartedly supported. After graduating college, Margaret officially became a nun. She trained as a nurse, earned her certification, and spent decades managing and leading operations at various charitable hospitals across Ohio. By age 62, declining hearing and memory prompted her transfer to the small church beside Mercy Hospital in Toledo, where she took charge of the sacristy. Her social circle was simple. A perfectionist with a strict, upright demeanor, she was devoted to her work. Those who admired her praised her dedication, while those who didn't found her rigid and inflexible. Still, these traits hardly seemed motive enough for murder. Police learned that on the day of the murder, Sister Margaret followed her usual routine, waking at 5 a.m. After breakfast, around 6:50 a.m., she left the dining area to prepare the church for Easter. Along the way, she encountered another nun and 2 drivers who just finished a night shift. After that, no one saw her alive again. An hour and a half later, her body was found in a pool of blood. The crime scene revealed chilling details. Sister Margaret lay face up on the floor, a strangulation mark on her neck, arms stretched along her sides with palms down and legs straight. Blood splattered her forehead, while her left cheek, neck, and chest bore dozens of stab wounds. A white altar cloth partially covered her right arm, the rest tucked beneath her body. A crucifix had been inserted into her private area. There were no signs of a struggle. At first glance, the scene resembled some sort of sinister ritual. The sacristy's doors and windows were intact, with no evidence of forced entry, and nothing was stolen from the room or the hospital. If the killer were a stranger, Margaret would likely have been on guard. Yet her lack of defensive wounds suggested the perpetrator was someone she knew, someone with a deep grudge, given the brutality of the attack. Autopsy results showed 31 stab wounds across her face, neck, and chest, all potentially fatal. No semen was found on her body. 9 wounds near her heart formed an inverted cross pattern. The murder weapon was a blade approximately 7.6 centimeters long and 1.3 centimeters wide, with 4 edges and a diamond-shaped cross-section. The killer had pulled down Margaret's pants, placed a crucifix in her private area, stabbed an inverted cross into her chest, and smeared her blood on her forehead. Police theorized a murder with performing a satanic ritual, displaying a profound knowledge of religious and occult symbolism. Satan, Christianity's embodiment of evil, is revered by 2 types of followers. The first believes Satan grants immense power, using inverted crosses, defiled water, women's bodies as altars, child and animal sacrifices, and intercourse with the altar to blaspheme the sacred. The second sees Satan as a symbol of carnal desire, indulging in depraved acts to satisfy their sinful urges. The killer, likely someone familiar with Margaret, harbored resentment toward her and understood satanic rituals. But who could it be? With no fingerprints, hair, or weapons left at the scene, the investigation stalled. Yet, as police struggled, an unlikely suspect emerged. Father Gerald Robinson, a 42-year-old priest from Toledo. Raised under his mother's strict discipline, Robinson decided early on to become a clergyman. After years at seminary, he achieved his goal at 26. By 31, he was a respected local figure, seen as a model priest with an unblemished record. Could someone like him be involved in such a heinous crime? Investigators uncovered tension between Father Robinson and Sister Margaret. Her perfectionism often sparked clashes with him over church matters. Due to her age-related hearing and memory issues, Robinson had to repeat instructions from his superiors, which frustrated him. The day before the murder, they'd had a heated argument. Margaret was furious when Robinson shortened the Mass, insisting even a priest shouldn't rob people their chance to pray and repent. She'd reprimanded him harshly. Could this have been the tipping point, igniting a long, simmering conflict? Another priest in the church boldly told investigators, "I think Father Robinson is a killer." Their relationship was terrible. After the murder, the hospital loudspeaker announced an emergency, calling everyone to the church. Doctors, nurses, and nuns rushed over, but Robinson arrived late. His room isn't far from the sacristy. He couldn't have missed the commotion. The hospital manager had to fetch him personally. When he finally showed up, he was calm, his eyes blank, like he wasn't surprised. That's not normal for someone to hear about a murder. Margaret's death has to be connected to him. A week later, witnesses reported hearing hurried footsteps on the second floor around 7:30 a.m. that day, where Robinson's room was located. The sound suggested something urgent had happened. A doctor also recalled running into a middle-aged priest in a black cassock near the sacristy after the emergency announcement. Though in a rush, he noted the man's brown hair and estimated his age at 30 to 40, matching Robinson's description. If it was him, why didn't he head straight to the stage? Suspicion mounted. 2 weeks later, police searched Robinson's room and found a letter opener. 20 centimeters long, 4-edged, diamond-shaped in cross-section, matching the autopsy's weapon description. Oddly pristine. It bore no fingerprints, suggesting it had been meticulously wiped. A tiny blood stain on its decorative bronze handle tested positive for blood, but the sample was too small to link it to Margaret. Despite public pressure, police interrogated Robinson twice. He dodged questions, claiming he knew the killer because they confessed him in church, only to later recant, admitting he'd lied to deflect suspicion. A polygraph test proved inconclusive, possibly because he'd taken sedatives beforehand, a fact police discovered too late. Before the investigation concluded, Toledo's bishop, with help from a former deputy police chief, whisked Robinson away to another parish, a common church tactic to shield its reputation. Lacking concrete evidence, the case went cold, fading from public memory for 23 years. Then, in 2003, Toledo police received a letter from a woman claiming that, as a child, she'd been forced by a group of men, including priests, into a horrific satanic ritual. Dressed as nuns, they drew an inverted cross on her, threw her into a snake pit, and placed her beside a sacrificial offering to silence her. At 11, they implanted a human eyeball, convincing her she was always being watched. At 14, a priest introduced her to Father Robinson, with whom she later exchanged sex for money. Traumatized, she buried these memories until she connected with a support group for clergy abuse victims, prompting her to expose her abusers. Though her claims were old and hard to verify, they cast a dark shadow over Robinson, prompting police to reopen Margaret's case. After 23 years, much of the original evidence was lost, but they focused on the white altar cloth and the letter opener. Tests showed the blade matched the stab marks on the cloth and Margaret's wounds. Bloodstains on the cloth aligned with the opener's handle design, strongly implicating Robinson. Additional allegations surfaced. Another woman accused him of assault during a ritual, and unverified reports tied him to a Toledo group called the Sisters of Mary Mast, where men posed as nuns for gatherings. In 2004, police arrested Robinson, now 66, for murder. A search of his home uncovered a box of photos, hundreds of corpses in coffins, old and recent, and a pre-1980 occult book with marked passages detailing satanic rituals, including using women's bodies as altars and killing them. News of his arrest polarized the public. Some believed he was guilty. Others defended him as a kind priest, raising $12,000 for his legal fees. Under pressure, police exhumed Margaret's body for re-examination and enlisted Dr. Lou Nark, a forensic expert. The second autopsy revealed a diamond-shaped wound on Margaret's jaw, matching the letter opener's tip. Dr. Lou Nark reconstructed the crime. The killer strangled Margaret from behind in the sacristy, laid her on the floor, and stabbed her repeatedly. Blood splatter and wound depth suggested the inverted cross was stabbed to the cloth, followed by deeper thrusts after its removal. Chemical analysis confirmed a bloodstain on the cloth matched the opener's handle pattern, likely left when the killer rested the weapon on it. On April 24, 2006, 26 years after murder, Father Robinson's trial began. Over 30 witnesses testified, including original investigators, Sister Mary, and experts. The evidence, cloth, wounds, and letter opener, formed a damning chain. Curiously, Robinson's lawyers presented a video of his interrogation to prove he had never confessed, but it backfired. When investigators left the room, he muttered under his breath, possibly praying. Prosecutors argued he was confessing to Jesus, though only fragments like, "Oh my Jesus," and none were audible. After 20 days and 6 hours of deliberation, the jury convicted Robinson of murder, sentencing him to 15 years. He became the second U.S. Catholic priest convicted of murder after Hans Schmidt. Robinson appealed repeatedly, unsuccessfully, and died of a heart attack in prison 8 years later at 76. His true motive, perhaps rage at Margaret, twisted into a satanic offering, died with him. The case remains a stain on the church, a grim reminder of humanity's dark side beneath even the holiest veneer. From a criminal psychology perspective, Robinson's actions suggest a complex mix of repression, resentment, and ritualistic compulsion. His strict upbringing and outward piety may have masked a fractured psyche, where control clashed with chaos. The satanic elements weren't just theatrics. They likely reflected a deeper rejection of his faith's constraints, channeled into violence against a figure like Margaret, who embodied the rigidity he both emulated and despised. We'll never know the full truth, but this case underscores how even the most disciplined minds can harbor monstrous impulses. That's all for today. See you in the next story. Goodbye.